Hey everyone, today we are covering the Kickstarter of a new game called Ahoy. This video will include a developer interview as well. This is a project that has been slowly simmering in the background, but when their Kickstarter released and smashed the initial funding goal, it became a big topic in our community. I noticed a lot of different reactions to the video, so I thought it would be good to sit down with the developers to get some clarity. So today we summarize the ambition, dive into the Q&A with the devs, and then my reaction. If this is your first time here, this channel focuses on multiplayer sim gameplay. So if you're into that, please subscribe. First, Ahoy is a very ambitious project. It's a first-person boat simulator set in the age of sail on Unreal 5. It is focusing on delivering an experience that is historical, styled in a simulator, while being focused on multiplayer. When you look at footage of their 20-minute Kickstarter trailer, you can really get a sense of where the developers' heads are at. And I would recommend watching it, as I will summarize it, but not retrace over the same line and cover every single little detail. Just watch their video for it. They are clearly really passionate about the era, want to represent it historically, and are really digging deep for the details. The project is going to have 3 major milestones. First, and slated for Q1 2026, Sea Trials, a closed private alpha that is a peaceful multiplayer sailing experience, allowing you and your friends to sail with one of the ships. This seems like the initial public-facing proof of concept. The next is Arena Mode, which is set for Q4 2026. This is an immediate action mode where it's objective-based skirmishes between ships. This is the actual main product that will allow for players to take part in PvP action. Last is Open World, which is the long-term vision, which is to have a persistent multiplayer sandbox, think MMO, where players can take part in trade, hunt convoys, and allow for players to engage in more open world gameplay. This is the vision and something that a ton of people latched onto. The game is based on a first-person view, so players will be able to walk around their ship, and Multicrew is a big piece of it. You will either manage a small boat or split up responsibilities with a friend for a bigger ship, or between your group, tasks are delegated to AI who operate the ship. The Kickstarter trailer was beautiful. It turned a lot of heads, but I noticed people had a lot of different conclusions of what the game is going to be. So I reached out to the developers to get clarification, and now we can transition into the developer Q&A. This was not done over voice, it was done over text, so I will go through each question and answer. And before I start, I want to say thanks to Tyler, the project lead of Ahoy, for taking the time to answer these questions. Along with that, because this was not done in voice, I decided to use a voice generator to speak over the developer answers. That way it's clear that these are the words of the developers. The first question was to orientate the naval action players. In short, will this be the spiritual successor of naval action?
Ahoy is a vastly different experience to naval action. Naval action's gameplay loop is defined quite specifically by the fact that each player is represented as the ship they command. In Ahoy's first-person view, the focus shifts quite dramatically to a more intricate sailing mechanic, crew management mechanic, and the immersive nature of being present on the ship, but above and below deck. While there are certainly elements of naval action's experience that inspire us, we would likely more closely associate Ahoy's moment-to-moment gameplay with Blackwake, Sea of Thieves, or Pirates of the Burning Sea.
Next question has to do with trying to nail down the open world gameplay. First, will the game allow for clans to conquer ports?
Yes, in the open world, players would operate either directly under their nation or within factions belonging to their nation. Each player would play a role in either the direct military output of that nation or the support of the nation's logistical chain.
Can players produce and trade goods?
Players would predominantly participate in the transport of goods, but being active within the actual trade and production would certainly be a further later expansion of those mechanics.
Next, can we do open world ganking or line battles?
Line battles were not very prevalent in the West Indies, though should our Ahoy fleet expand to include larger ships of the line, we would aim to try to represent these much more complicated engagements. Most engagements in Ahoy could be considered a more focused duel between a few ships rather than a battle of tens or hundreds.
Will Ahoy be as grindy as naval action?
At this stage, it is not easy to say. We don't aim to make the game a grind, but that isn't to say progression will be a walk in the park either. We feel there is a balance to be made between making the experience enjoyable while ensuring achievements are well earned. How that balance shakes out is yet to be determined.
Will PvP be a core component of the open world?
Yes, both PvP and PvE are core pillars of the hopeful open world.
Then we change the focus of questions. What assurances should players rest on to feel comfortable that the current dev team can deliver the vision? Any past experiences?
We believe the proof is in the pudding. We appreciate some will feel that there is some risk in supporting us at this stage, but we simply say that if you are not convinced by what we show today, please consider waiting to provide your support. We are more than happy to prove ourselves through our actions over the coming months.
One thing that stuck out to me in the messaging around the game is that the business plan or monetization structure was not entirely confirmed, and asked for the reaction on this.
The business plan pre-open world is clear. We will deliver on the sea trials and eventual Arena releases. Arena will be provided as a standalone release available on Steam and Epic Games stores. Further monetization of Arena will be explored through cosmetic-only microtransactions, but we feel that a balance between free, earnable and buyable cosmetics is massively important.
Then I ask, how do you think about being a game versus a sim?
Ahoy is somewhere in between, simulation enough that there are deep systems to perfect, sailing, navigation, but simple enough to enjoy moment-to-moment, combat, social interaction, etc. We're taking the history seriously, but the gameplay will certainly be a mixture of simulation and more traditional gameplay mechanics, allowing players to hopefully lean slightly in either direction.
Then I asked to get some clarification on what ships will be palatable, solo versus requiring multi-crew.
Players will not be able to sail 5th or 6th rate or equivalent ships solo. Larger ships require multiple players to operate. Multi-crew gameplay is a core pillar of the Ahoy vision, and while we see the call for solo-able ships, we feel that this should be represented within the smaller ships of the game. Bigger ships are not necessarily better ships, and every ship has its utility, regardless of your level of progression.
This is an important question, and let me pause for one moment so you guys can understand where I'm coming from. I was not a huge Sea of Thieves player because of the more gamey cartoon nature of the game, but with that said, I thought it was a really good game, just not exactly my cup of tea. I have seen a lot of concerns from players saying they are worried that any multi-crew requirements from Ahoy are going to severely limit the playability of the game. Solo players would be artificially capped in what they could do. In further clarification with the developers on what is the largest solo ship that can be palatable, they said they are still deciding and point to testing to find the right balance. Will we see proper line ships?
We would love to explore larger ships, but our current largest ship, Artemide, based on the lines of HMS Bristol, a 50-gun, 4th-rate ship of the line, is our test of these larger vessels, and will form the basis of determining our ability to implement ships of this size. Until that has been proven, we will not expand the scale of the ships in Ahoy any further. It should be noted that while in other games, these ships might not seem large. In first person, these ships, even at Artemide's size, are absolutely enormous, easy to get lost within, and terrifying to see on the horizon.
Then we get into the dates of their milestones and how they were selected.
Q4 for Arena's initial release is a fantastic continuation of the development after sea trials in Q1. It gives us a year of feature development and ship introductions to bring that Arena experience to life. We're confident that when we share our progress on sea trials in the coming months, the timelines will feel less restrictive, and we hope this brings a certain amount of confidence in our proposed roadmap. Naturally, as with every development project, there may be unforeseen challenges which cause delays to our targeted release dates. We feel confident that so long as we're sharing regular updates, the reasoning behind potential delays, and most importantly, proof of results, the community will support us taking any necessary additional time to deliver a polished and enjoyable experience. That isn't to say we think the dates we've set are hard to hit, but naturally, we will always prioritise quality, as set out in our Kickstarter campaign video.
I was curious to clarify the perspective of the game because this was not abundantly clear to me, but apparently it was to some others.
Players play as the captain or officers aboard each ship. As captain, you can delegate orders to your crew or provide your officers with the necessary permissions to do so on your behalf. Each officer commands a different section of the crew at all times, and this provides the ability for a ship to operate with high efficiency. While players can take over as gun captain, this is usually to provide more direct control as desired. A well-oiled gun crew supported by knowledgeable officers will perform just as well, if not better, by receiving direct orders to adjust gun laying, accounting for the pitch and roll of the ship, and timing the moment of fire as accurately as possible.
What sort of tasks should we expect on the ship for gameplay?
On the smallest of ships, players will be more hands-on with the general roles of steering, trimming sails and navigation. On larger ships, players become less directly involved in these tasks, and instead become much more involved in crew and ship management, delegating tasks to the NPC crew and focusing on navigation or combat tactics.
Then I decided to go into the topic about boarding.
Early iterations will likely be present at launch. However, the long-term vision for boarding action requires the combination of many complex systems. Each captain can determine their initial stratagem, i.e. defensive, offensive, intimidating, unyielding, capture, luring, etc. These methods of engagement are then carried out by the NPC crew in waves, allowing for slightly more control within an already chaotic environment. Players would engage directly within a fairly traditional and recognisable first-person shooter experience. Downed players would be out of action unless revived by others, and dead players are removed from the boarding action entirely. As each ship eats through its remaining crew and players, either captain has the option to strike their colours and admit defeat. We expect this will occur less in Arena, in favour of a fight to the death, and surrender would not carry as many benefits as it would in the eventual open-world release.
Then we go back to ship selection. I was curious on what decisions went into selecting ships for the game.
We choose ships based on their notoriety, lack of previous digital reconstruction, particular service history, relation to other ships in the fleet, and of course the limitations on active service dates between 1770 and 1785, and ideally their history of service in the West Indies itself. Not only this, but we do not currently have plans to expand beyond our current largest ship until that tech has been proven.
Any challenges so far on the project?
As an isolated example, character animation is a huge challenge. We're committing to full and realistic interiors, which creates complex interactions, navigational challenges, awkward headroom, among many other elements of awkwardness. This continues to challenge us and is one of the major areas of R&D that we're continually carrying out. Our successful Kickstarter campaign will enable us to bring on an experienced technical animator who will assist in many of these challenges.
Plans to go full-time with the Kickstarter?
All of the team are committed to continue through a mixed volunteer/freelance basis. As the campaign comes to a close, we will be reviewing the available funds after fees/tax and ensuring that we are able to bring on additional talent where necessary, while also supporting the existing team as much as possible. One of my primary motivations here is to ensure the team is well looked after, feels stable in their ongoing commitment to this project of passion, and that we have the necessary talent to carry out the development of both Sea Trials and Arena.
Then the last question about the UI and interacting with the AI crew.
Almost all UI in Ahoy will be diegetic, that is to say, exists within the bounds of the in-game world. Charts will be viewed on your desk, ship's books will provide access to crew management and statistics, and providing orders will be given in a streamlined manner via a minimal HUD which emulates the spoken commands you would expect from the real experience. We want to get the menus out of the way and let the game world speak for itself.
Now that we have some clarification directly from the developers, we can get into my overall reaction of the project. In general, the project sounds great, but there are some things that are sticking out to me that is forcing me to keep my guard up. I don't want to style this channel to just be shilling for projects without questions, so I will raise my concerns. But first, let's start with the good. 1, the general ambition of the studio is something that is music to my ears, but I need to separate that from Arena. I am mostly interested in the open world vision, more so than the Arena mode. I really love games that have persistence and give context to why a fight is happening and the implications that happen afterwards, win or lose. Arena mode, I am sure I will play, but if these are small little lobbies of a dozen or so ships fighting it out, I'm sure over time that I'm just going to get bored of it. These lobby matches in games like Counter-Strike or War Thunder are fun to just fill up empty time, but they are hard to play on just repeat. I really want to find a game that I can sink my time into, and I really do love the story that gets told with a persistent world. I mention this point because it's clear after doing more digging into the project that the Arena mode is the actual product that this Kickstarter is squarely focused on. If the team can deliver that, and if it goes well, then they can plan for the next thing, which would be the open world. How open world will actually be is to be determined. It may even launch as its own separate game, and it may even include a subscription fee. It's not been determined yet. So I say this to really stress the point that when you sit and consume the advertising material for Ahoy, think Arena. Try not to do what I did and get latched onto the open world. The second point is that I think the Age of Sail is a really interesting era that is really underrepresented in gaming, and there's a ton of room for expression here. I played not a lot, but some Sea of Thieves, And I have to say, I thought it was a really solid game, but it just wasn't my cup of tea because of the art style. On the flip side, I have played 500 plus hours of naval action, and I very much enjoyed the combat in that game. I appreciate all the modeling that goes into it, but I wish the open world was more fleshed out, like it was in Sea of Thieves. So basically, Ahoy seems like it can fill the void between the two. So this sounds great, but my concern that I want to flag is multi-crewing. Naval action, in my opinion, really does a great way to represent the command of a ship as a solo player. Ahoy is going to be a completely different perspective. It's first person. In Ahoy, if you command a larger ship, you will need to delegate tasks to AI, and eventually with a ship big enough, you will need to multi-crew it with another player. The AI task delegation, I think, is fine, but the requirement to multi-crew some ships is something that makes me a little nervous. I can find people to play with, but I don't want to absolutely have to rely on people in order to play a certain ship. Size really matters with these ships, and the tactics you use can change depending on the size of the ship. If some ships are locked behind a multi-crew requirement, then you are going to limit what you can do as a solo player. I asked the developers to confirm which ship is the largest one that we can pilot, and they said they are still determining that. I take this as a potentially good sign. There is room for movement here, but I really call on the community to voice their opinions on this. If some core ships are multi-crew only, you are going to severely limit the type of people who are going to be able to play this game. I really hope the developers keep this in mind as they decide on where this will land. So thematically, I am with this project. It fills a niche that is ready to be filled. The last big issue, and it's the elephant in the room, is how sure are we that these developers can actually deliver this? My answer is I'm really not sure. I am very sensitive to the fact that this project is new, and I use this channel to mainly support games. And when I offer criticism, it's generally to try to advocate for things to change and not to kill a game. So I say the following to be supportive of the niche because it's a small one that's very sensitive to population fluctuations. With that said, there are some things that need to be stated so you feel ready to decide if you want to support this game or not. One, there is no obvious gameplay footage. This is generally a huge red flag, and when looking at Kickstarters, a huge red flag. I mentioned this to the developers, and they said that, quote, you'll find some footage of gameplay within the longer Kickstarter trailer, particularly in the relation to sea trials, end quote. They have also been very vocal in the Discord to say they are not showing any gameplay until they are ready to do it. So to state it very plainly, if you are supporting this project, you are doing it based on goals and assets they have made, but not based on any actual confirmation that a game already exists. Some people may have more disposable income and are willing to take a bet. Others have been burned before in Kickstarter and may be more on guard. This is all really based on your risk tolerance, and that's for you to decide. 2, the team is new and doesn't have a history of making any games yet as a team. This is something that I saw get mentioned quite a bit. I did some digging here, and the team does have a history of working in the industry. Along with that, I did some due diligence and found someone that was being sought after for the team, and I did discuss with him his interactions with the Ahoy team. He said that, in general, his assessment of the team is that they were honest people that were acting in good faith and trying to deliver a game. The only flag he raised was that the project was very ambitious. So while I do not know this person well, the fact that I was able to track someone down that had some interactions with the team does give a little bit of a neutral third-party verification that the team are actually acting in good faith, and that's a good sign. Along with that, I did a lot of talking with people that have been following the project for over a year, and their interactions with the developers have been positive. 3 similar projects have been tried before and have failed. The Kickstarter has been a big success, and they have raised nearly 6x what they sought out to do. $600,000 is a lot of money, but will it be enough to get them over the line? It's hard to say. Game developers in the US on average make about $100,000 a year. Maybe they can find developers at a much cheaper rate and be able to bring on a lot more people full time. It's not clear how much resources they have and how much they will be able to secure with this funding. Along with that, something similar has been tried before. Rulers of the Sea was a similar game that had a really scummy business model that was pay to win, and this game ended up being a flop, and the dream was never realized. Here's a short clip of another YouTuber, Big Fry, digging into the marketing materials.
Okay, let's go to the game. Do we have anything to look at that like shows that they have like a build somewhere?
Now, Rulers of the Sea was a straight up pay to win game and gave off much worse vibes than Ahoy did. The thing though is that one of the flags that people were raising then still applies now. Lack of gameplay. It wouldn't be fair to make this video without mentioning it. I generally don't even like to cover games that don't have gameplay yet, but this Kickstarter was too big to not talk about it. And the Age of Sail is too dear to me that I just found myself thinking constantly about Ahoy, so this video is my way of getting this idea out of my head. On the whole, it seems that this is an extremely ambitious project made by a team that has not made something together yet, but struck a chord with their idea and have raised the funds to move forward and seem to be working in good faith to try to deliver it. If you decide to back it or not, it's entirely up to you. Due to the history of past Kickstarters that have launched without gameplay videos, there is, on paper, a lot of risk with this project. Will Ahoy be the exception to the rule and be able to deliver? I'm not sure, but I will be tracking this game very closely, and I do wish the team well. Let me know below on where your head is at. It's been interesting for me because the reaction to this have been extreme, complete opposites. Either people are all in or are extremely on guard because of the lack of gameplay. Where do you fit in, or do you fall into a third bucket? If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe as it continues in development, and also for other sim games. Thank you.